little we know about the gunman is he's a 26-year-old Esteban Santiago. He had military ID. He was on an Air Canada flight. He had already checked a gun. What's remarkable is that upon landing and going to the baggage terminal, he got that luggage with the gun inside it, took the gun into a restroom, came out of the restroom, and then started shooting at the baggage terminal. The baggage terminal, as you know, in most airports, and in this one included, is outside the security area, so that's raising a lot of talk as to whether that is something that has to be addressed going forward. David Katz with the Global Security Group. David, what do you think of this?
It's a horrible situation, obviously, and I have a couple questions. They say it was on an Air Canada flight. I don't know. I'd like to know the point of origin. If it was Canada, there's a lot of questions there because the Canadians don't have the same gun laws we do. But believe it or not, when you travel armed, what you can do is you take your firearm, you check it. You could take ammunition as well, as long as it's not in the same physical container, and you travel with it. So it's a very common circumstance where people travel with firearms, but it's just remarkable that this individual was able to get access to that weapon right off the baggage claim, go into the bathroom, arm himself, and start shooting people. And most of these instances, as we know, are outside the screened areas, where security is lacking. So I think at this point, maybe there's a little rethinking process, get more security outside the screened areas, because once they're in the screened areas, the likelihood of something like this happening is far, far less.
All right, so what are the rules in the United States then, David, when you have a weapon, obviously it can't be armed, but you can put it in luggage. Are the same requirements there that when you arrive you leave it alone, or in this case, he had to have packed it with the ammunition along with it, right?
Well, it depends where you're going. Different airports have different regulations. For example, and by the way, the only people who can carry armed are federal agents, for example. When I was an active agent with DEA, you travel armed. Now,
he had military ID as well. Would that have been good enough?
No, not at all. No, absolutely not.
Really?
What we have to do is, like, for example, if you transit, let's say you go from New York City or a local airport here elsewhere, when you check your weapon in, you have two layers of screening. You have the Port Authority Police Department. They look at the weapon. They look and see whether you are licensed to have that weapon. And then you go through the usual TSA screening. In other airports, there is no police involvement. TSA just does it, and all they do is they don't verify whether you have a legal firearm. So, for example, if you're traveling in a different airport without that police involvement, all you do is you say to the ticket agent, you're carrying a weapon armed. They examine it, ensure it's unloaded. You sign off on it. You lock it, put it back in your suitcase, and then you bring it to TSA. TSA, their sole focus at that point is make sure that weapon is not loaded. But the weapon and the ammunition are allowed. You can carry them in the same container or the same bag of luggage, for example, as long as they're not in the exact same physical container. I think maybe there's a little rethinking process.
But they can be in the same suitcase.
Yeah, or even if they weren't, so you travel with two suitcases. So you have a weapon in one and ammunition in another. And by the way, this happens thousands and thousands of times a day, and law-abiding citizens clearly aren't doing these things. But there's got to be some method in place where someone like this really should have been given a hard look, because I'll bet when we unravel this, he probably had that weapon illegally. And that is where we could have probably interdicted this and stopped it before it happened.
Yeah, we don't know. David Katz, thank you very much. Global Security.